After being on the birth control pill for 6 years, I learned about how it actually works, and I learned about all of the side effects and things that I might not have even noticed were happening with my body were happening, and I was upset. I wasn't told all these things when I went on the birth control pill. All these things were things that I didn't know were happening, though, because I went on it when I was 14. So, I grew up on birth control, and I didn't know what my body would be like not on birth control until I came off of it, and I was like, oh, this is what it's like to be a happy, normal person.
It's been over 60 years since we invented hormonal birth control. Shouldn't it be better by now?
Hello everyone, my name is Janice and welcome back to my channel. It's been a year since I've last uploaded onto my YouTube channel, and I have no explanation for that. School started picking up and whatever. But today I wanted to bring you guys a new sort of video style, something that I've been really interested in lately, and that is video essays. Yay! Okay, today I want to discuss birth control, more specifically the side effects and history of birth control and the future for birth control for people with uteruses and its role into women's health. I've been really inspired lately because of Netflix and Fox's collab documentary Sex Explained, specifically the birth control episode, because I just learned so much information from that little maybe 30-minute episode, and I thought that it was crazy that I didn't know any of this information beforehand. So I thought that it was definitely something insightful and kind of shocking. Not a lot of people know this information, and hopefully through this video you'll get a new insight onto all things birth control related. So yeah, let's begin. Before we step into the hidden world of birth control, let's first talk about the history. Birth control has been documented in many ancient civilizations and has only seen consistent improvement since then. In ancient Greek and Egyptian societies, many women and gynecologists of the time wrote about plants that prevent pregnancy and or terminate any existing one, while also partaking in some sort of birth control that had many women shoving different forms of animal dung into themselves, sometimes crocodile, sometimes elephants. It mainly depended on where you were from. As we fast forward to the 1950s, there was a growing need for contraceptives in many countries, so many researchers began to look for ways that they could alter the female hormone cycle as a way to prevent pregnancy. Unsurprisingly, the research conducted for this cause was deeply rooted in racism, colorism, and American exceptionalism. So a couple years into contraceptive research, researchers in the 1950s saw an opportunity to use poor Puerto Rican and Black Latino women as medical guinea pigs for their experiment. At that time, the U.S. appointed governor of Puerto Rico began a forced sterilization program of Puerto Ricans for fear of overpopulation. Don't know where that really came from. So when scientists arrived with the reversible form of birth control, people took it. No questions asked.
By 1953, 17%, almost 1/5 of all Puerto Rican women, had already been sterilized.
These women were given the contraceptives without being told that they were the first in the entire world to take this sort of contraceptive, and that this whole contraception program was actually an experiment with them as the unknowing participants. 3 Puerto Rican women died and many suffered serious side effects. But these results were ignored. Their deaths were never investigated, and these negative results were ignored in order to proceed with experimentation. After such brutal racist experiments were conducted, the birth control that we know today came onto the market in the 1960s under the name of Inovid. So Inovid worked for a bit, but as more and more women began to take the pill, they began to experience abnormal and serious side effects. So, just 10 years after it was introduced into the market, an all-male congressional hearing was held to discuss the pill's effects. An all-male congressional hearing. If there's one thing men have, it's the audacity. Angered at the fact that men were the ones debating health policies and legislation over women's bodies, a group of feminist women stormed the hearing and were able to speak out about these effects, which thankfully brought a unique female perspective into the conversation. Ultimately, the hearing was a success, and legislation was put in place to force contraceptive companies to decrease the hormone levels in their pill. Before we continue, let me be loud and clear. I am a supporter of birth control. In my opinion, birth control is quite literally one of the best innovations for people with uteruses on a global scale. Birth control's main purpose is to prevent pregnancy, but it also has a variety of positive benefits that include, let me read this off a list for you guys: regulation of menstrual cycles, less painful periods, a decrease in hormonal acne, a reduction in the risk of uterine cancer, a reduction in the risk of ovarian cysts. It can relieve some symptoms of PMS, helps manage endometriosis, and gives you the freedom to bleed on your own terms. And many more. I just got tired of listing all these. For transgender men and non-binary people, the birth control pill gives them the chance to stop their periods, assure no pregnancy, and avoid gender dysphoria. In addition to the many biological benefits of birth control, there have also been many social benefits. For example, more women are able to stay in school, have smaller families, and improve their financial situations by having the ability to now go into the workforce. All in all, birth control is great. These benefits, however, don't mean that there are no flaws. One can view something in a positive light and still point out its flaws. One of the drawbacks of using hormonal birth control pills are the side effects. Some common side effects are headaches, nausea, an effect on hair growth, increased water retention, change in libido, change in emotions, blood clots, and a change in bone density. What? Like, that's insane. Although it makes sense that medication may carry some sort of side effects because it is something artificial that's going into our body, the number of side effects and the danger it poses to the lives of people with uteruses is completely outrageous. In her book, This Is Your Brain on Birth Control, Sarah Hill states, "To be a woman, no matter where you are in the world, means to be on the wrong side of the social and economic gaps much of the time. We as people with uteruses are conditioned to blame ourselves for our own discomforts and pain instead of shifting our focus to the actual cause of our problems. The pill we have been marketed to and consistently told to turn to as a simple solution to all sorts of ailments ultimately changes the profile of our sex hormones. So it makes sense that these alterations in estrogen and progesterone levels will have serious side effects. This, however, is no excuse for the extreme side effects of birth control and the usage of it as a sort of cop-out treatment for many gynos and their general unwillingness to provide people with uteruses all the information they may need in order to make an informed decision, because simply not getting pregnant is worth making yourself a little sicker. There are two main moments that a majority of women will find themselves in when visiting an OB-GYN's office, or they will be immediately offered birth control as a way to treat their illness. The first is menstrual issues. People with irregular flows, heavy flows, or non-existent flows would be immediately offered birth control as a way to treat their illness, instead of doctors taking the time to assess the patient, recognize their struggles, and try to find the real source of their problem. The problem with this cop-out treatment is that birth control is not a great way of treating period problems because it doesn't actually treat them. It just stops them from happening by stopping you from ovulating and getting periods. Yet many trained professionals are quick to give this out as a cure-all treatment to many people with uteruses from as early as 12 years of age. Another common issue that is generally given the cop-out treatment is PCOS. PCOS stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome and is a hormonal disorder causing enlarged ovaries with small cysts on the outer edges. PCOS can manifest itself in a variety of ways and is linked to diminished fertility. Many gynos just give birth control as a treatment for this because of its ability to decrease cyst growth, but in some cases birth control worsens the effects of PCOS in people with uteruses. Personally, I can relate to this lack of care for my experience and pain because for some years now I've been struggling with irregular flow, and it took about 8 years and a change from gynecologist in order to actually get a doctor that would listen to my experience, validate my pain, and treat me like a real human being, someone that actually understood what was going on with their body. She was able to break down what was actually going on with my body, give me cohesive testing, and was actually willing to listen to all my pain and symptoms, like for these 8 years that I've been struggling with this. And thankfully she was able to find out what was actually going on with me. And for that, I'm truly grateful, because I know many women might have completely different experiences from mine, but I'm lucky to have found someone that is willing to listen to my experience instead of just throwing out birth control as a treatment without taking the time to fully listen. When I think about the side effects and the role birth control has taken in OBGYN treatment for many people with uteruses, I begin to stress about how willing we as a society are to take medication that, although offers many benefits, is also very likely to make us extremely sick. At this point, you may be wondering what exactly you could do to fix this, and many of you may say, male birth control. Male birth control is something that has been in development for decades now, and always garners a lot of attention on social media and many news outlets. Still, it's astounding that no breakthrough contraceptive has made it to the market after decades of testing for male birth control. The main reason is that many of these birth control trials, if they ever make it to human trials, were cut short because men face too many side effects. Would you like to take a guess as to what those side effects were? Yeah, the exact same side effects that women currently face with the hormonal birth control pill that's on the market today. So apparently, when approving a drug, the FDA weighs its risks against the risks of not taking that drug. These side effects that were too tough for men to handle were passable to the FDA in regards to women. It has come to my attention that male birth control has to be better than female birth control. It has to come with fewer side effects, can't have serious life-threatening consequences, and is considered less important because of this twisted mentality where women are thought to be the only ones responsible and to blame if there is an accidental pregnancy, as if two people aren't involved in that whole process. Men and people with uteruses both take equal roles in producing a child, but that equality is not consistent when dealing with the consequences people with uteruses face when dealing with the consequences of an accidental pregnancy and the many trade-offs of reproductive freedom and health. The standards for male birth control are so much better than the ones for birth control for people with uteruses. It's almost as if we are expected to accept that our very existence and biological makeup requires us to experience pain and discomfort as something intertwined into the female experience. This brings me into the topic of androcentric medicine. Androcentrism is defined as a tendency to disregard the female contribution to society and culture. Androcentric medicine specifically assumes the male body to be the standard and holds male knowledge and experiences in higher esteem than a female's. It is common that when researchers are choosing which sex to study, it is almost invariably males that get chosen, leading to research and medical recommendations being made using males as the standard, instead of taking into account the effects these medications or medical recommendations could have on people with uteruses. Androcentrism is consistently prevalent in research and the medical field because many researchers refuse to take people with uteruses into account for testing because of the normal fluctuations our sex hormones go through during our cycles. That may change the results of their research. What I don't understand is that if you're trying to make medication for the general public, those hormone cycles that you're refusing to take into account because they're too inconsistent are very real realities for many people. And no matter what will affect these people very differently than men. So wouldn't it make sense to study these effects throughout someone's hormone cycle and try to perfect a medication that feels good for all? Androcentric medicine treats the female experience as something abnormal that needs to be repressed and silenced, while willfully ignoring the importance of these things in our own beings. What the FDA and other pharmaceutical companies are doing by either holding different standards for male and female birth control or refusing to invest in male birth control at all is valuing the comfort of men as non-invested people in their own fertility, lessening the consequences of their actions in accidental pregnancies, and punishing people with uteruses to deal with their fertility and possible pregnancy as something solely their responsibility, with subpar contraception methods as their only option. As stated on This Is Your Brain on Birth Control, we worry about men using artificial sex hormones because of all the effects they have on the body. At the same time, women are routinely prescribed female sex hormones and kept on them for years at a time, despite all the effects that they have on the body. We are willing to turn a blind eye to all the ways the pill can change women because we simply can't entertain going back to living in a world where women don't have control over their fertility. And we shouldn't have to. It is time to stop being okay with whatever science happens to provide for us, and time to ask for what we need. What we need is more research into women's health and women's sexual pleasure, but many companies are unwilling to do so. There's very little incentive to innovate because women will continue to buy subpar birth control pills, no matter the side effects, because so many people with uteruses are willing to make an exchange between their health and the benefits of using the pill. This incentive to innovate is key to advancing and innovating better birth control pills for people with uteruses. Yet we're not likely to get this innovation because of big pharma's capitalistic greed and general unwillingness to improve on medication when there's already a high demand for their current subpar product. When I say this, I don't mean this as a way to shame women for accepting birth control as it is today, because it is a necessary thing, and if you feel it's right for you, go right ahead. I'm saying that major pharmaceutical companies have little interest in expanding research into women's health if there's no profit in sight. And it's completely twisted that the motivation for improvement on such a vital form of medication can't just be that they're good people willing to make a change to promote female empowerment through comfort and safety, but instead is dependent on money. Research into women's sexual health is extremely lacking already, but with a lack of interest from major corporations or the general public, it looks like it'll continue this way for a while. I mean, we only recently found out that it isn't just a little nub, but instead is an incredibly large thing inside of you. Like, we literally just found this out. The was just mapped in 1998. So where can we go from here? Some things we can do are initiate more research for non-hormonal birth control, create hormonal birth control with less side effects, convince the FDA that male birth control shouldn't be held up to a higher standard than birth control for people with uteruses, or convince the FDA to raise the standard for hormonal birth control pills for people with uteruses. You know, whichever is easier, of course. Obviously, change is slow. For now, there's only one well-known non-hormonal birth control pill in the world. Its name is Saheli. And this non-hormonal birth control pill has been on the market for 30 years. You only take it once a week, and a majority of the previously mentioned side effects go away because it's a non-hormonal birth control pill. The only bad part is that it's only available in India, and it's extremely hard to get outside of India. As we can see, there's progress happening outside of the US, but it is slow and difficult to get these alternatives unless we urge American pharmaceutical companies to innovate their contraception. Do I think we as people with uteruses deserve higher quality contraception? Yes, of course. Do I think we're going to get it anytime soon? Probably not. Our current political world is in shambles. There's a conservative majority in the Supreme Court that is rumored to be discussing the possibility of banning the free use of contraception. So yeah. I don't think we're going to be able to urge researchers and pharma companies to make better products when we are currently trying to protect their very existence and accessibility. To be a woman in American society is to have your rights and body be under the control of an all-male health committee and government who believe they know what's best for you, regardless of the opinions and facts from actual scientists who have devoted their lives to the study. We as people with uteruses should continue to urge for better contraceptives because no matter what, it will be a long battle, but eventually, someone will listen. To conclude, I'm an avid supporter of birth control, but I do think that it has its flaws. These flaws, as I mentioned above, were mainly dealing with its side effects, the generalized acceptance of pain for women and people with uteruses, and its usage as a cop-out treatment for many female ailments. If you need birth control, please go out and get it. Planned Parenthood has a ton of resources to help you find what's right for you and where you can get it, but please make sure to do your research. And talk to your doctor about how this might affect you as an individual. Right now, times are pretty scary, and we as people with uteruses deserve to have control over our bodies, so let's make sure to exercise it and live healthily. Thank you so much for listening to my first video essay. I hope you enjoyed and learned something new today. I'm super interested in this topic and want to be able to do it justice, so comment down below any other topics you want me to cover or any thoughts you might have on this topic. I'm really interested in keeping this conversation going, and if you find any discrepancies or any sort of issues with what I said, please be sure to leave that in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Stay happy and healthy. Bye.